Nominations for the Tory leadership race open tomorrow, but will we have to wait until November to find out who the party's members choose to replace Rishi Sunak?
Well, the Shadow Home Secretary, James Cleverly, has already won an endorsement from a former minister, and he's expected to put his name forward, and he joins us live now. Hello, Mr. Madeley. Good morning to you. As I joked slightly before the break, you're a shadow of your former self. How does it feel being in opposition after all this time in power?
We get into politics. I think everyone gets into politics because they want to do right by the country that they love. We want to serve. Obviously, when you are in government, you are best able to discharge that duty to serve your country. I've loved being Foreign Secretary. I loved being Home Secretary. I'm now shadowing my old department, and so I've got a new job, and that new job is to make sure that the government of the day, the new Labour government, does its job well. That if I can't do it, then I've got to make sure that they do it and they do it properly. And that is an incredibly important job. It's not the same. It's not the job that I love, but it's a job that absolutely needs to be done and needs to be done professionally and needs to be done well to hold them to account.
If you weren't doing what you're doing now and you had a bit more time on your hands and you were writing your memoirs, looking back to July the 4th and this crippling defeat, how would you summarise what went so badly wrong for you guys? Where did it all go badly wrong?
Well, I think that in the conversations that I had on the doorsteps, people, they would talk about a wide range of things, a number of things. But so often what would come across is the disagreements and the infighting within the party, and we've got to recognise that that happened far, far, far too much. There is a place for debate and discussion, but when that spills over to infighting, what it says to people is that we are more focused on ourselves than on them. Now, I don't believe that to be true, but certainly that was the perception, and when it comes to elections, perception is reality. And the good things that we did, the stabilising the economy, the support to Ukraine, the support to people during COVID, the support to people when their energy bills went up, all that was lost because it was overshadowed by our behaviour. So I do think that we need to be conscious of the self-imposed errors and problems. We need to recognise that perhaps we need to bring about a different tone, and that we need to remind ourselves, and by extension the British people, what it is that we believe in terms of personal freedom, in terms of the enterprise culture, in terms of supporting people to live their best lives. And until we get back into that habit, I think it will be hard for us to get a hearing.
I mean, that's quite the pitch. Nominations for the Tory leadership open tomorrow. Will you be putting your hat in the ring?
Well, look, tomorrow's work is for tomorrow. Today's work, as I say, is about holding the government to account. In my portfolio of Home Affairs, well, I'll be at the dispatch box for our response to the King's Speech debate. And the Labour Party, Yvette Cooper as Home Secretary, and the Labour government have made some big decisions, and they've got a lot of big things badly wrong, and I will be holding them to account for those decisions. So that's today's work. Okay, what happens in the future, I'll worry about in the future.
But, you know, nominations open tomorrow. You haven't got long to sort this out. You must have decided by now whether you're going to put yourself forward.
You're going to run, of course you are.
Well, look, of course, I and a number of other people have thought about the future of our country, have thought about the contribution of the party and our personal contribution to those things. Of course, you know, and I don't think I'm alone in having given that serious thought. But also, I've always believed to do the job that you're meant to be doing when you're meant to be doing it. And when I was in government, I focused on delivering in government. Now I'm in opposition. Okay. My focus, particularly today, is holding the Labour Party to account.
Coral and Ladbrokes at the moment have got you at 8-1. I mean, obviously, I'm not recommending you put a bet on this because we know where that ends up. You've also got the endorsement of a former minister. Lord Ed Vaizey has said you're apparently very near the top of his list. I think that's, you know, that's an endorsement, though, isn't it? Because he says you're normal and down to earth.
Well, look, it's very nice when people say pleasant things about you. In politics, you always get lots of brickbats, so when you do get positive words, you embrace them hard. But as I say, ultimately, and this is what I came on the show to talk about, I want to highlight the errors that Labour have made in their first week in a government, particularly on the immigration portfolio, which came up on the doorstep, is a very important portfolio, and I think they have made some terrible mistakes, which will bite them on the backside.
With Rwanda, though, aren't they? Yvette Cooper talking about Rwanda, saying it was an expensive gimmick, it cost taxpayers £700 million, a shocking waste of money. Only 4 people went, and that was on a voluntary basis. And then there was this secret plan to have a further 10 billion going in.
Those numbers are nonsense. Nonsense. So the problem that Yvette has got, she seems to have forgotten that until just a couple of weeks ago, I was the Home Secretary and I had complete oversight of the costs and figures. So that 700 million figure, and one piece of advice I would give to her, both with the 700 million and that 10 billion figure, if you're going to make up numbers, don't make them nice round numbers, because it makes it obvious that you've made them up.
How much did we give Rwanda overall? How much did we give them?
So we've given Rwanda just under £300 million because we asked them to do certain things, build infrastructure, build a pretty much bespoke legal system for the processing of asylum claims, recruit judges and other senior officials, all of which they did. They earned the money that we gave them. Because they did what we...
They also said that they'd give quite a lot of it back if the scheme didn't come to fruition, and so far we haven't seen a brass farthing. Will you now, and this is quite an interesting thing for you to do, will you now be pressurising the Labour government to ask Rwanda for some of our money back?
Well, I think it would help if you're going to ask for some of the money back, not to have been so condescending and insulting, and this is what the Labour Party have done, to not even bother to inform the Rwandans that you're going to scrap this bilateral treaty. The Labour government, and this is one of, I think, their key mistakes, day one in government, they announced to the British press that they were going to scrap the Rwanda agreement, didn't even bother to inform the Rwandan government. And this is a level of discourtesy which is quite beyond belief. And when I asked the Home Secretary, when did the British government finally have the good grace to formally notify the Rwandan government, I got zero response.
But how can you say that it acted as
that is unacceptable?
How can you say that in a putative way it acted as a deterrent when the numbers of people crossing the channel illegally are a record high? They didn't go down, they've been going up.
And the inevitable byproduct of removing this deterrent, and we've seen this already, over 2,000 people arrived since the Labour Party stepped into government. The numbers are accelerating, and the reason I say it was a deterrent, and there was a news story a few weeks ago from Ireland who were saying people were coming illegally into Ireland because they didn't want to be sent to Rwanda, coming from the UK into Ireland. And also the Telegraph went to interview people on the French coast who have said that they had delayed their departure from the French coast because they had heard that the Labour government, which was likely to win the election, was going to scrap the Rwanda scheme. And this is a direct quote from one of the people on the French coast.
But if we look at the actual figures, crossings, I mean, but, you know, you can go and chat to people and you know, whatever. If you look at the figures, crossings so far this year up nearly 10% on last year, so it just shows it wasn't working, and that was under you as Home Secretary.
No, that's not. No, because to say that it was a deterrent does not mean that it deterred absolutely everybody, and the demand has been increasing. Numbers of illegal migrants across Europe have been increasing and increasing very, very alarmingly. Now, we had, because of the arrangements with the French that we negotiated, the French authorities had stopped. The French authorities had stopped about half the attempted. We had deportation flights. We were sending people back, but the Labour Party have failed to say where they're going to send people if they arrive from Afghanistan or Iran or Syria. They have no deterrent. They have no safe third country. Those boats' arrivals will go through the roof. They will have to reopen asylum hotels. Okay. And sadly, and this is the most heartbreaking thing, I think we're also going to see more people dying in the Channel. OK, Mr Cleverly, thank you for joining us this morning. Always good to talk to you. I am confident in placing my bet that the next time we talk to you on Good Morning Britain, you will be a leadership candidate for the Conservative Party. But there we have to leave it. Thank you very much for joining us this morning.